This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages right here on #WeAreMovieClub. It's time for Bad Movie Club. Salutations, I am Camera and I am conversation ready. Today we're here to talk about Red State. And I need to start doing this without hitting the microphone. I'll get there one day. It's fine. I'm having this messed up intro. That's what it is. I did play with it being on the other side, and I really don't like it. I don't like it. This is by far what I think is Kevin Smith's best movie. It really stems from a lot of his, I'm going to call it nonsense, with talking to people in public forums, such as with the podcast, such as with Evenings with Kevin Smith's specials, etc. Things like that. The basis for this conversation is much different than things that came out of like Tusk and Yoga Hosers and Moose Jaws, where he was basically high making a joke that he wanted to bring to the real screen. This was something that like when Dogma came out, like the Phelpses, the Westboro Baptist Church, I think that's what it's called. Like real big. They were the jerks like protesting funerals for gay soldiers. I get exhausted talking about it, so I'm going to try to focus over to the movie. But the whole idea was that what are they going to do when they don't have anything left to protest? What if they get kicked out of all the forums? What if there are no bodies to protest over? You got to make the bodies. And it was that kind of like crazy mentality that like he went to this movie with. And honestly, he did a wonderful job. I really think this is his best movie, and it's filled with controversy, but the controversy is good about getting people who have watched the movie to talk about it and extending its life from there. It's not good for getting people to watch the movie in the first place. I'm just being honest there. But I'm a Kevin Smith fan, so you didn't need to do a lot other than say Kevin Smith's involved to get me to watch this. When you start selling it about what it is, why it's called Red State, the idea being that red states are conservative or Republican states, which therefore are conservative states, which means that they're because they're Republican that they're Christian states, and they're conservative Christian states, which means that these are the places that would have extremists in them that would be radical hate mongers, that would be so against homosexuals and trans people, and what else are they bitching about in here? Just like people that are generally misbehaving and whatnot. So it's a bunch of foo hockey. I don't know what word to use there. So it opens on a car driving, and it's a mom, what turns out to be a mom and son chatting about school and what's happening on the weekend. The idea is to normalize the situation. It's like, hey, we start normal. This stuff happens every day. Everyone has a mom somewhere, even if they didn't grow up with them. Like, people have kids. It's a very normal thing. And we drive past this thing that isn't as normal, but we recognize, which is people protesting a funeral. Let people bury people, and burying people in the ground is a silly practice. Not that like I haven't contributed to that slightly, because I didn't know what else to do. But don't put me in the ground. It just doesn't make any sense. And if you do it without anything around me. So that like I can get ate up. At least have something feed on me. Nom 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 nom. Isn't that right? Nom 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 nom. There is a cat right there. I'm not just making sounds at the desk. So we go into class, and the teacher's like this super progressive teacher, talking about civil liberties, or she's cursing it away in the classroom for the purposes of the discussion. But there's a line here I thought was so beautiful. She's talking about this extremist that lives right there in town. And talking about like even the Nazis thought he was knucking futz, because she was talking about like the groups of people that have distanced themselves from his politics, and when you include the Nazis, for them to do anything like a civil fashion like that is amazing. But they do have a party here in the United States. I don't know if it's the neo-Nazi party, but Nazi does actually mean something. It's not just a group of bigots. I still don't think what they stand for is good, but like the bigotry part is obviously not. So like that association and everything, please don't vote Nazi. That's all I'm saying. Um, but let's go back to the movie. I find myself distracted. Like I want to talk about anything else than like this fire and brimstone church nonsense. Uh, so of course, like the premise for a lot of this uh, is that like the kids are getting together and like they're trying to do the typical high school thing. Like it almost starts out like American Pie, where like they're like, we've got to start a pact to get laid this year or whatever. It's like what's gonna happen, but they're in such a small town with so few options, and apparently they're the loser kids. They find somebody the next county over in the conservative area. When people are turning up in like wrapped up in as dead bodies in plastic wrap, don't, just don't. So they find a lady that wants to get up with all of them. I guess I don't know. I tuned out of the premise a little bit. If I'm being honest, it's like they're gonna go to a place where a lady's expecting them to do something that all of them knows is wrong. Which I'm fine with that sort of thing. Get off how you get off. Let's see. So kid has to convince his mom for the car. There's this whole stupid again trying to set like the normal up because there's a lot of this movie that fights with that because it's trying to remind you that like these are things that could happen, that might be happening, that would be happening around America in real life. So the idiot kids drive over to this other thing. They end up sideswiping the car because they're drinking and driving and they're retards anyways. And so they sideswipe the car and they're trying to like figure out what the damage is and what to do when like someone in the car sits up and they freak out and they run when it's just very obvious that some people were in the car getting together. And quite frankly, I don't know why you picked that spot. You park like that, or anything. Maybe it's just part of the kink. I don't know. So let's see. So they end up pulling up to this trailer, and there's a middle-aged woman that walks out and talk about getting down to the devil's business. I don't know why I went like that, but maybe this accent's a little bit close. A little bit closer, maybe. Talk about. I'm going quite Creole with it, but I'm not quite. Yeah, I'm not quite on down Louisiana, you know. But let's bring it back up to go to Alabama, Georgia, maybe. We'll talk about the Deep South. How do you like the Deep South, Rooster? Are you a fan? Are you a fan of the Deep South, my son? I could go a little bit like this and talk. Foghorn Leghorn. I say, boy, go back in your box. You and your ginger hair, like. I have too much fun with voices, even if I'm not good at them. So Devil's right in here, and they go inside, of course, and at the sheriff's station, turns out it was the sheriff's car that got sideswiped. And I guess he thought he was going to die. He was not alone in the car either. Obviously, they were getting together. But he's having his evening cry or whatever. So he sends the deputy out to look for the car that sideswiped him. Because honestly, he's a piece of shit sheriff. Let's just be honest. The guy who played Milton is playing the sheriff. I think he could do a good sheriff if he was allowed to, but this is obviously not that role. So he's like drinking whiskey on the... He suits up, then drinks the whiskey, looks at his wife's photo and cries. It's like, just be who you are, man. Stupid conservative nonsense. And that's part of what the movie's supposed to make you think about. Let's see here. And the deputy's already on overtime as it is, so... back in the trailer, she's trying to get them all drunk, and of course... I don't know if there's gas in the trailer or like she roofies them, but she knocks them out and they end up I don't know why she sends them into the bedroom to get stripped down, but they end up walking in there and passing out somewhere else because you don't know where it is until later. It's the church that they're in. The dude wakes up in a dog cage, and the more noise he makes, the more attention he gets of like the cage getting hit and him getting yelled at. But it turns out the church people are singing and praying just like you would think of like any church Sunday. It's a real family setting. There's little kids and older kids and teenagers and so minus the guy in the dog cage screaming, quite the family setting. And really, a person should be able to open a dog cage. So unless there was like it was zip tied shut or something, I don't know what the problem was. Maybe he's just stupid. That could be it. So the preacher's going on quite a bit. He's giving his sermon. He's talking it up. And there's a lot of human rejection into his sermon. And he believes in a fearsome God, fire and brimstone, etc., etc. A God that punishes the wicked, that he hates all of us for being part of the sin until like we recognize and move away from it, etc., etc., etc. To me, it's a lot of bullshit. You may actually find small things that you like from it. If you like all of it, put yourself in a place to talk to somebody. Because the point of this movie is that this is not a good thing for society. And it's not, they know it's not a good thing because they have to hide it. They have to live it in seclusion behind their wall of bullshit or whatever they call it later. They have to do all their stuff in secret and do it just right so they get away with it. If you know that something is right, you stand by it, you do it loud and proud. And that would make sense. And they kind of get to that position later, but they do that after they're already cornered, so the bravado is lost. But let's continue on here. But he does get to a point where he sends a teenager out with all the little children because it's adult business. What does he say? He says it's gonna get all grown up in here, something like that. So sure enough, there's a guy bound with or they have to uncover him, but he's bound with cellophane and a ball gag, which now that I'm thinking about it, the cellophane part's a little weird because you'd have to wrap him individually wrapped with cellophane and then have him cellophane to the cross. And of course, then he's ball gagged. But I don't know if it was the guy that the sheriff was with, but like they call him out as a homosexual. They say that like he's not a person. All this crap, something about like an insect and like God doesn't cry when you kill an insect. Why would he cry when he kills when you kill something like this petty and pathetic and etc. etc. And it's, man, like they really sell. I think it's Michael Parks, if I'm remembering right. He really sells just being a douchebag of the highest villainous order. But they do this really cleverly. Like it's sad that I'm impressed. Is they put the pistol on top of his head and fire into his body so that the bullet doesn't travel anywhere else. They can control the shell casing. It makes this cool little fire thing because they cellophane his head up first, so the cellophane actually burns on contact with the flames. And then they cellophane over the hole so the blood doesn't leak everywhere. And then they cut the cellophane on the back of the cross so that he falls into a trap door. This is all pretty genius to a small degree, except like in the basement are the other two kids that got kidnapped, so the body falls on them. And like I said, they had to cellophane him and then cellophane him to the cross, which they don't do to the other kid later, that I'm aware of. But maybe they don't have time. Maybe that's the other problem. Because, I think this is right here on the notes. Give me a second. They do tie up the dog cage boy to the cross. He says he doesn't want to die, and the preacher says this really kind of like ominous lines like, "You're already dead. We're just going to help you on your way to hell." Or something like that. But at that point, like, the deputy pulls up because he notices, like, the sideswiped van or a station wagon in the not the Phelps's yard, but the yard of the compound for the church. And the whole time this is going on, the two kids in the basement are like trying to free themselves because they're awake now, and the guy who fell down, like, his leg broke, so now they got a sharp pointing bone to like cut themselves on, or cut the cellophane on. So the tall dude ends up getting away, and he breaks through the crawl space, starts running around the compound, and he ends up like hiding out in an armory of all things. Which, why the armory door was wide friggin' open, I have no idea. I don't know why you would do that in general. There's kids running around. There's just people in general. Someone sneaks in the compound. Like you've got captives. It just doesn't make any sense. But he makes his last stand in there, and then for whatever reason, the door is flimsy enough that the guy chasing him can get in. And because it's a stupid kid, he can't pull the trigger first. He doesn't know what's going on. So he gets shot in the head, and then his body reflexes shoots across Ralph Garman's chest, of all people. So the deputy, of course, hears that. He calls it into the station, but he's too stupid to pull his gun out at the same time. Even when, out of nowhere, one of the other dudes walks up with a rifle to shoot the deputy. You'd think he'd be able to duck behind his door or get behind the car or something. And those radios don't work unless you push down, so I'm not sure how... Oh, maybe he had his hand on it when he got shot. Okay, and then he was yelling back for him. Okay, never mind. Sometimes you answer your own questions. You just need the time. You need the effort. It's called rubber ducking in programming. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So the interesting way is like how they knew it was the deputy out there is that the babysitter actually brought the laptop in with the security footage. So it's like they're teched up. They had a magnetic lock on the gate. They've got security cameras. I don't know where that camera was supposed to be at because it looked like it was about 40 or 20 feet above the middle of the lawn. So there's that. What's funny enough is like one of the middle-aged ladies like freaks out because her husband got shot. Legitimate thing. But the preacher shows her the dead bodies of the two kids that he killed before he went down. So it's like he died doing the Lord's work. That sort of nonsense. And of course she's filled with rage, so she's kicking dead bodies, which is almost a bad thing because one of the kids is actually still alive because he just took longer to get there, and he played dead, which was actually good. So he's trying to comfort her. It's like, we still got one up on the cross. You can save the rage for him. And John Goodman gets a call in. I thought it was FBI, I really did, but of course it's ATF, and I have no idea what the stereotypical nonsense is with the ATF. If like they're known to be fools or something, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I really don't. But like apparently it's not good. And it's I don't know. I don't think they did anything wrong about the weapons, right? Because it's the Arms, Tobacco, and Firearms Association, or Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Association. That's what ATF is. So the only reason that they would be there is because of the massive amount of firearms that they track going to the location. But if they didn't modify them, then what does it matter? I'm not aware of any laws that restricts the number of firearms that you're supposed to have. But there are laws that restrict the amount that you sell, I think. So because you have to have like an armorer's license for automatic weapons and things like that. So there are things like that, but there again, like this doesn't seem to be a thing. It's just, I think it happens to be what the idiot sheriff calls. And so John Goodman gets the call, and of course he's got a boss he's responding to. And it's not like he jumps out of bed and he goes to work. It's like he gets out of bed, he has a couple hours, he eats breakfast, all this, and then they get out there like by noon or something. It's really kind of stupid, because it really drags up into the moment. And so like they get out there, they take position, they take shitty positions too, by the way. They get like on the horn, they get the spike mic set up, which was what in theory the little bullhorn would be hooked up to. It's not just it's derp derp, and then on these super loud speakers projects into the house. So they definitely heard. It wasn't confusing what the people in black wanted, because Because they come in and they give him the ultimatum and they try to give him some time, but of course they're trying to treat it as a non-hostile situation. But the other kid that was pretending to be dead manages to run out right when they're out there, and the sheriff of all people shoots him, which just fucks the whole situation. Because if that guy had made it to the ATF and made it out of the compound, then you have a witness to the accounts. He can ID the other hostages and who's a hostage and who's a perpetrator. What's it called? I don't know, terrorist. Fuck it. Combatant. It really helps later on, but because he never made it out alive, the kill order was able to happen, where John Goodman's boss or whatever says there are no survivors. You take out everybody there, and after the girl gets downed, I just, man. So, of course, John Goodman goes nuts on the sheriff for taking out the civilian. The church ends up opening fire after the ultimatum's put down. So his partner's head gets blown off because they're just standing out in the open. And apparently the preacher's a good shot. So, of course, John gets on the phone with his boss immediately. That's his first reaction while everyone else is shooting around. And then, like, there's a medic guy trying to take care of him. He's like, go grab a rifle. And this is actually when John Goodman's, like, lost a lot of weight, too. So he doesn't have some of the gruffness. And you can tell it when I talk a little bit. Like, he doesn't have, like, fat cheeks or anything. He's actually thinned out a little bit in the face and neck. So he doesn't have quite as much as this going on, which I'm exaggerating quite a bit. But even as you talk down and talk thinner and you get more control, there's a certain thing that happens when, like, your cheeks don't touch your cheek as much. Your teeth don't touch your cheeks as much. Something like that. And he has that going on, so he's got a little bit more command in his voice, and I like it. It was really good for him. I feel bad that he ended up kind of returning to his expected weight, I want to say. The weight that we picture when we picture John Goodman, but he probably just... It's like, I'm getting old, it's not worth keeping up anymore, and people already know that this is me, so why not be that way? So, let's see. God damn. This is so messed up. So, like, the situation gets worse and worse and worse. They manage to gain a perimeter of some kind where they're not getting killed left and right. And they can still kind of maintain fire. And hell, they must have brought a lot of ammo with them. Because it's just a crazy amount of fire going on the entire rest of the movie. But they make it to the stables somehow. And so John and his sub-officer are having an argument there. And his sub-officer is like, I can't believe this is what it is. You're here now. You can change the order. But John gives his sub-officer the order, and his sub-officer's carrying it out without question at that point. He's like, you can change this, but he's still carrying out the order. Whereas John Goodman's the one who's like, well, this is the order, and then questions it continuously from that point on. So when the guy radios in that he has an unarmed teenage girl, he gets the order that there are no survivors. Use of lethal force is authorized, and he takes way too long trying to set the girl up because he actually gives her a sidearm that he empties by her hand, so that if you don't know this, when you fire a gun, there's flash powder that happens from the bullet casing when the bullet fires, and it usually gets on your hand right about there. So he does that to her to show that, like, so when the forensics looks at it, it'll show that she fired the gun. The flash powder and any round casings or anything like that will match the gun that he had, which was his sidearm, which I guess is unregistered. Was the point of that? Or like maybe she snuck up on him and got his sidearm, and then as she was running away, shooting at him, he managed to get her. It's a stupid story, and the fact that like he got to it that quickly means that he had that plan in the back of his head. Like, this is when I use this. The fact that he got to it so quickly makes him a douchebag. The fact that it took him that long to get there means he's an idiot. Because he took long enough for her mom to just walk up behind him and cap him one. And then she pulls her inside and dresses her down about not being part of the family, running out on us. Even though her whole movie, she's just trying to get the kids out safely because they're non-combatants. Like, this is a war zone at this point, especially declaring them terrorists. Now, I'm not saying that there's no method to the madness of killing everybody in that house, but why bother doing that when you don't have to? Control the situation, capture the ones you obviously could, and store them somewhere. And if you have to go back to execute, then you do that. But just tactically, it's like you got to handle the situation quickly and be done with it. You can't be indecisive like that. And putting kill orders on obvious non-combatants and hostages too, mind you, was just a little messed up. So, bleh. We'll circle back to how messed up the situation is. I need to stop going on about it. But of course, like, when she's inside, she's given a pistol, and she goes, and her move is to go and get the kid who's still on the cross down, and she's like, "You're gonna help me. We're gonna get these kids out of here. They're just babies. Like a 6-year-old, I got an 8-year-old. We've got to get them out of here. We got to save them. They're not part of any of this. I didn't know it was." She pretends like she didn't know what was going on. She knew. She knew what the adults were doing. And I really think, like, you give him the gun. It's like, you take this. Like, if you really want, like, you take me as a hostage. We got to get the babies out. That would have been a better move, I think. I think that might have worked on this idiot kid. But they spent so long arguing, and he's up in her face while she has a gun, that mom gets in there and starts slapping the shit out of him instead of shooting him, because she's blaming him for killing her husband. She thinks he's attacking her, or he's attacking her daughter. And then, like, I don't know why he doesn't actually fight back, but, like, she's slapping the crap out of him. I think she starts pistol whipping him finally, and then she shoots her own mom. And then, of course, the kids run around the corner because they heard a noise. Why wouldn't you? Because that noise is a lot closer. So now she's got her mom's blood all over, so she looks a lot more serious. I guarantee you. If you haven't seen the movie itself, it is a very convincing point of view that it's like, you were now going to help me do this. And so he agrees, but she has the kids barricade themselves in the attic, so that she can get a safe passage out for him. Because if she can get out and talk to the agents, then she can secure a safe passage, make sure they won't shoot at the kids, which actually really was a smart way to go, because by the time like, Cheyenne, that's her name, actually gets outside. Oh yeah, at this point too, there's a lot of spray and pray from the church. Just a lot of did I get anybody? Except for the preacher. It's very telling of, like, the personalities here. It's like he's stirred up these wild and crazy people, but all his moves are calm, cold, and calculated, and they're single shot too. It's very important that, like, that's expressed. And despite all the fire coming into the house, he doesn't seem to have moved and is not shot, like, through a lot of it. So Jennifer Schwalbach, if you don't know, is Kevin Smith's wife, and her character's hubby end up going to the roof. They end up getting the sheriff in the car. Another agent gets tagged in the neck. Goodman finally gets the hubby, and then Schwalbach, because, quite frankly, they're standing on the roof. There's not a lot to blend into. If you lay down on the roof, it's a much more strategic position, but you are giving away your firing position pretty well. You want to switch it up a little bit if you can. And honestly, it's surprisingly similar guns between the ATF and the one that Jennifer Schwalbach's holding. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Yeah, so at this point, too, the assailant is face down in the pond. That's the kid who ran out. So if he didn't die from getting shot, he drowned in that pool. There's no questions about it. Let's see here. And then these horns go off. You hear these loud noises, just... And nobody understands what it is. They're just, what the fuck? And then all the church folk start celebrating. Even when they're doing that, though, like, nobody's killing them. Like, he actually has them drop weapons to all walk outside together in righteous fury, or up, whatever you want to call it, when someone's just being a pious dick. Um, and no one's shooting at these guys as they come out. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, even before they surrender, they should be plugging away at these guys that they were just firing at them. And before this, because I missed it, when Cheyenne and the kid run out, Goodman's got them at gunpoint, and they're just "Don't shoot. We're not part of this. We just want to get the kids out." And the guy's like, "I'm a hostage. Like, don't shoot." And then his sub-officer plugs both of them, because at that moment, Goodman knows that, like, that order's wrong, that they shouldn't be doing it. There shouldn't be killing people like willy-nilly like that. And he just chewed out the sheriff for doing that too. There's no way I would have followed that kill order where there's no survivors. You handle the situation while you're on the ground, and you take charge of that. If there's no survivors, you will let the boss roll in himself and cap these fools. You don't... or if you could make that call yourself, you do that. But unarmed children, I don't know. America kind of frowns on that, I'm just going to say. So John Goodman finally, like, tells them, like, after they surrendered, well after he started preaching, it's like, enough killing, there's been enough blood. Something like that. But he's so confused by the preacher's behavior that he's just watched him. He's just watching him walk up to him, yell in his face about this and that and whatever else. And, like, it's like, we've got the horns of whatever on our side. God's favored us. It's time for the rapture. Kill me, goddammit. He's just, kill me, shoot me, shoot me. And he walks all the way up to him, like, chest to chest. And this is actually a fun bit where Kevin Smith said that, like, he had wrote a different ending for the movie, but it would have been as much money as the rest of the movie cost to actually do that ending. So, like, after, like, nobody's gonna do this ending, he came up with this ending that he had, which is that it cuts to a courtroom, and there's somebody asking Goodman's character, like, "What did you do then?" Because it turns out, like, this has all been a narrative story being told in the debriefing for the ATF. And his answer is that I subdued him with a headbutt. Now, I don't really want to see Michael Parks get headbutted, but that would have been a funny scene. I'm just being honest. So, like, long story short, in all this debriefing nonsense, because of the mess it was and how it was handled, they're taking him away from the field, and they're reassigning him in Washington, which is a promotion when, like, you get a stationary position like that, when you get taken out of the field, even if that's what you want to do, like, and it's an undetermined reassignment too, so it could be something horrible or lateral, but he's being taken away from this field office that he currently works at. And because they're terrorists, the ones that did survive can be held indefinitely. And none of the hostages survived, so that's out the window. Which, because they're terrorists, they can be held indefinitely, makes the kill order completely unnecessary. That you want to capture them so that you can interrogate them, etc. And that means that the preacher and family, of course, is being sent to prison, like in Gitmo or something. Terrorists don't go to normal prisons. They go to, like, higher than high security facilities that aren't on American soil that I remember. I think we had a couple in Cuba for a while. That was Gitmo, if I'm remembering correctly. So the horns is a funny thing too. It's like, it turns out, like, it's a neighboring collective of, like, pot farmers or something. Apparently the preacher had been harassing them because of the compost smell. So they got creative, and they hooked their iPad up to, like, this giant horn they found just to mess with the religious folks. Which I think is a really funny prank, especially out there where it's so rural that, like, oh crap, you stupid cat. What are you doing? Okay, so my cat just knocked water all over. Oh, I guess it missed my keyboard. That's good. It's just my My mats. That's okay. They get wet from time to time. Um, yeah, I don't care. Um, let's see. So and we got to end the movie on a nice note. A nice note is his orange jumpsuit, walking around in his tiny, tiny prison cell, kind of like singing and talking to himself, and then his neighbors yelling at him to shut up, which I think is a nice touch. It's like even there everybody hates him, but now he doesn't have his family or whatever. But if you follow like the Charles Manson kind of theory when it comes to cults like this, prison is a horrible place to put him because it means that he's in a social community of some kind, which means that he can systematically find who he can convert over to his side and work them. Because now, granted, this guy isn't like the social genius. He basically had a small army by inbreeding. So there's that. Oh man, so that's our bad movie for today. I really don't think this deserves the title of bad movie. This doesn't belong in a bad movie club, but this almost finishes out our Kevin Smith run. We're gonna do the Canadian horror trilogy next. So we're gonna do Tusk next week, and we'll follow that up with Yoga Hosers. And Moose Jaws won't come out by 3 weeks from now. Even if it did, it would be out in theaters 3 weeks from now. What is your deal? Leave him alone. So we'll circle back to that eventually. But I think, honestly, we're going to go to Adam Sandler movies after that. Because they do not hold up. And honestly, I don't think they were all that funny. Most of them weren't that funny to begin with. So I'll have to see what I've got and what we can do. But I think that's coming up next. We'll do that after we do the few superhero movies, because I want to do the Captain America where he hijacks cars. That's gonna be fun. We're gonna do the original original Hulk movie with Liv Tyler as Betty. I know there's a couple other bad superhero movies in there. We can do Daredevil and Blade. I'll have to think about that, but I think we're gonna end up doing those. I like those movies, so I don't mind watching them. But I understand they're not great. I think this is it for me for tonight. Actually, let's just close out and I'll talk a little bit longer. Yeah. So until we see you next time, next week, go ahead and join us over at Rabbit/Camerai Friday and Sunday nights. Have a nice day from us here at #WeAreMovieClub. This has been Bad Movie Club. You want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations and they'll take you to other channels. Thanks for watching.